Hello, and welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're grateful for each view and comment. Tell us, from which country or city are you watching today? We enjoy connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Man in the Shadows. Russell Harmon watched the rain streak down the windows of his penthouse, the city lights below blurring into watercolor smears. At 52, he carried himself with the coiled tension of a predator. His salt and pepper hair was precisely cut, his expensive suit tailored to hide the strength he maintained with religious dedication. To the outside world, he was a brilliant architect who had risen from nothing to build Harmon Designs into one of the most prestigious firms on the West Coast. What few knew was the calculated fury that had driven him for the past 6 years. His phone buzzed. The screen displayed a text from Dominic, his personal security specialist. Surveillance updated. Sending files now. Russell's laptop chimed with an incoming email. He clicked through a series of photographs. His ex-wife Vanessa stepping out of her Mercedes. Her lover, now husband, Lawrence Paxton, escorting her into their lake house. And his son Nathaniel, now 22, arriving at his university apartment. The images were time-stamped less than an hour ago. For 6 years, Russell had monitored their movements, learning their patterns, their weaknesses, their secrets. He hadn't missed a single detail of their lives, while they believed he had moved on after the divorce that had stripped him of half his assets and, temporarily, his reputation. Mr. Harmon, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. Thomas Westfield is here to see you. Send him in, Russell replied, closing the surveillance files. Thomas entered, a burly former military man who now handled Russell's more delicate operations. It's confirmed. Paxton made contact with Diaz yesterday. Russell's expression remained impassive, though his eyes darkened. So, they're moving forward. Appears so. Money changed hands. From what we gathered, they're planning something around Nathaniel's graduation next month. Russell nodded slowly. Then we accelerate our timeline. Contact Simone and tell her we're implementing Protocol Chimera immediately. That's moving things up by 3 weeks, Thomas observed. They forced my hand. Russell turned back to the window. They're planning to use my son against me, Thomas. That's a mistake they won't live to regret. After Thomas left, Russell opened his safe and removed a leather-bound journal. Inside were meticulously detailed plans, contingencies for contingencies that he had refined over years. The pages contained his masterwork, not an architectural marvel, but an intricate design for destruction. He flipped to a page marked with Nathaniel's name. His son had graduated high school when the divorce was still raw, choosing to live primarily with his mother. Russell had maintained a relationship with him, though the boy had grown increasingly distant, manipulated by Vanessa's poisonous whispers. Still, blood was blood, and Russell had never stopped watching over him. His phone rang, his son's ringtone. Nathaniel, he answered, his voice warming slightly. Dad, I just wanted to make sure you're still coming to my graduation party next month. Russell detected the hesitation in his son's voice. I wouldn't miss it. Are you all right? Yeah, just stressed about finals. Mom's going all out with the party planning. I'm sure she is, Russell replied, keeping his tone neutral. I'll see you next week for dinner? Sure. I gotta go. Bye, Dad. The call ended, but Russell stared at the phone for a long moment. His son was hiding something. The tension in his voice betrayed him. Russell returned to his journal, making a notation beside his son's name. Whatever game Vanessa and Lawrence were playing, they had dragged Nathaniel into it. For that alone, he would ensure their downfall was absolute. The rain intensified outside, thunder rolling across the sky like distant artillery. Russell smiled. He had always found that he did his best work during storms. Chapter 2. Broken Vows. 6 years earlier, Russell Harmon's firm had just won the contract for the new Pacific Arts Center, the crowning achievement in his 20-year career. The celebration dinner at their estate had gone perfectly, with city officials and investors toasting his vision. As the guests departed, Russell loosened his tie, savoring the victory. You were magnificent tonight, his wife Vanessa said, sliding her hands around his waist from behind. At 42, she remained stunning, sleek blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and the poised confidence that had first attracted him when they met at a charity gala 15 years ago. "We make a good team," he replied, turning to kiss her. It was true. Vanessa's social connections and charm had opened doors that his talent alone might never have accessed. "I'm going to check on Nathaniel," she said. "Don't wait up. You deserve your rest." Russell nodded, pouring himself a celebratory whiskey. Their son, then 16, had made a brief appearance at the dinner before retreating to his room, citing homework. Russell was proud of the boy's dedication to his studies. Later that night, unable to sleep from the evening's excitement, Russell wandered the house. Passing his home office, he noticed the light on. Thinking he'd left it on himself, he pushed the door open and froze. Vanessa was there, hunched over his computer, copying files onto a flash drive. She startled at his entrance, her expression shifting from shock to calculated calm. "What are you doing?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Just sending some photos from the party to my sister," she lied smoothly. Russell stepped forward, taking the flash drive from her hand. "My design files aren't party photos, Vanessa." Her face hardened. "You wouldn't understand. It's just business." "Whose business?" "Lawrence Paxton's." The name tasted bitter on his tongue. Paxton Development was his firm's chief competitor, and rumors of their unethical practices had circulated for years. The slight widening of her eyes confirmed his suspicion. "How long?" he demanded. "Russell." "How long?" Vanessa straightened, dropping the pretense. 3 years. And it's more than business, if that's what you're asking. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. 3 years. While he had worked 18-hour days building their future, she had been sharing his bed and his secrets with another man. "Get out," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "This is my house too," she countered. "And when this is over, I'll have half of everything, including your precious company." Russell stepped closer, his control slipping. "You have 30 minutes to pack essentials. Anything you leave behind will be burned." "Don't threaten me," she hissed. "I have copies of everything I need. Lawrence already has preliminary designs for your art center. By the time you've sorted out this mess, Paxton Development will have submitted an alternate proposal at half your cost." The calculated nature of the betrayal made his blood run cold. Does Nathaniel know his mother is a thief and a whore? The slap came fast, but Russell caught her wrist before it connected. 30 minutes, Vanessa. Then I call the police." She wrenched her arm away. "This isn't over. You built your success on my connections. Without me, you'd still be designing strip malls in some backwater town." 29 minutes, he replied, his face impassive. When she left, taking Nathaniel with her, Russell didn't unleash his rage. Instead, he channeled it, focusing it like a laser. That night, he called Thomas Westfield, a security consultant he had met through a client, and initiated the first step of what would become an elaborate plan. By morning, he had changed all his passwords and security protocols. By the end of the week, he had filed for divorce and begun a counteroffensive against Paxton Development's attempt to steal his design. The divorce was ugly. Vanessa claimed emotional abuse, painting Russell as a controlling workaholic. Her affair with Lawrence Paxton became public, but she spun it as a relationship that began only after she left Russell. The courts awarded her half of their assets, though Russell's legal team managed to protect his company from her claims. Within 6 months, she had married Paxton, taking Nathaniel to live in their lakeside mansion. The boy, confused and angry, sided primarily with his mother, believing her version of events. Russell didn't fight it. Instead, he maintained a civil relationship with his son while watching, waiting, and planning. Paxton Development's attempt to undercut the Art Center bid failed when Russell revealed to the selection committee that their proposal contained stolen elements. However, the damage to some of his professional relationships was done. Certain doors that had been opened to him, doors that Vanessa's connections had unlocked, closed abruptly. Rather than breaking him, this setback crystallized his resolve. Russell rebuilt his firm's reputation project by project, all while meticulously documenting the continuing unethical practices of Paxton Development and his ex-wife's involvement. He knew that simple exposure wouldn't be enough. Lawrence Paxton had political connections that had shielded him from consequences before. No, Russell needed something definitive. something that would destroy them so completely that recovery would be impossible. And so he waited, gathering information, building resources, and preparing for the moment when they would make a mistake he could exploit. That moment came 5 years after the divorce, when Lawrence Paxton secured the contract for a controversial luxury resort development through methods that reeked of bribery and coercion. Russell finally had the leverage he needed. The endgame could begin. Chapter 3: The Invitation. Nathaniel Harmon stared at the graduation invitation in his hands, his stomach knotting with anxiety. The embossed card announced his master's degree celebration at his mother and stepfather's lakeside estate, now just 3 weeks away. He had already sent one to his father, but his mother had insisted he personally deliver a second invitation. "Your father might miss the mail," she had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And we want to make sure he comes, don't we?" Nathaniel knew better. In the 6 years since the divorce, he had watched his mother's hatred for his father grow, even as she pretended to have moved on. At first, he had believed her version of events, that his father was controlling, that he had driven her away with his ambition and coldness. But as he matured, he'd begun to see the manipulation in her narrative. The penthouse doorman greeted him with a nod. "Mr. Harmon is expecting you, Nathaniel." The elevator ride to the top floor gave him time to compose himself. His relationship with his father had improved over the last year, as he had started to recognize the inconsistencies in his mother's stories. Still, there remained a distance between them that Nathaniel didn't know how to bridge. His father opened the door before he could knock. Russell Harmon's observant eyes missed nothing as he welcomed his son inside. "You look tired," Russell noted, guiding him to the living room where a light lunch was already prepared. "Finals," Nathaniel explained, setting down the invitation. "Mom wanted me to make sure you got this." Russell picked up the card, studying it with an unreadable expression. "I received the one you sent last week." "I know," she insisted. They ate in silence for a moment before Russell spoke again. "You've seemed anxious lately. Is everything all right?" Nathaniel hesitated. His father had always been perceptive, a trait that had made lying to him as a child nearly impossible. "Just graduation stress." "And," Russell prompted. "And nothing," Nathaniel replied too quickly. His father set down his fork. "Son, whatever is happening, you can tell me." For a moment, Nathaniel almost confessed everything. The arguments he'd overheard between his mother and Lawrence, the strange men who had been meeting with his stepfather, the cryptic comments about finally settling scores. But fear held him back. His mother's warnings echoed in his mind. "Your father would use anything against us. He's never forgiven me, and he never will." "It's nothing," Nathaniel insisted. "Just academic pressure." Russell didn't push further, but his eyes reflected concern. "I'm proud of you, Nathaniel. A master's in environmental engineering at 22 is no small achievement." "Thanks, Dad." The simple praise warmed him more than he wanted to admit. As lunch concluded, Russell walked him to the door. "You know you can always stay here if you need to, right? Your room is always ready." Nathaniel nodded, though they both knew he hadn't stayed overnight since the divorce. "I should go. I promised Mom I'd help with some party arrangements." As he turned to leave, his father placed a hand on his shoulder. "Nathaniel, if you ever feel unsafe or pressured, call me immediately, day or night." Something in his father's tone made Nathaniel look up sharply. "Why would I feel unsafe?" "Just a father's concern," Russell replied. "The offer stands." Driving away from his father's building, Nathaniel couldn't shake the feeling that his father knew more than he was saying. He checked his rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone following him, but the street behind him was clear. Back at the penthouse, Russell examined the invitation more carefully. The heavy paper concealed a nearly imperceptible thickness in one corner. Using a letter opener, he carefully slit the edge and extracted a miniature tracking device no larger than a grain of rice. "Amateurs," he murmured, placing the device in a small metal box on his desk. He then texted Thomas, "They're getting sloppy. Bring Simone for dinner tonight." The reply came immediately, 7 p.m. "She has updates." Russell smiled. Vanessa always had underestimated him. Using their son as an unwitting courier was exactly the kind of miscalculation he had been waiting for. The graduation party was clearly intended as a trap, but they had no idea they were walking into one of his own design. He opened his laptop and activated a program that displayed a three-dimensional model of the Paxton Lakeside estate. Every room, every entrance and exit, every security measure was meticulously detailed, the result of years of surveillance and intelligence gathering. Russell zoomed in on the rear terrace overlooking the lake, where the graduation celebration would be held. Perfect sight lines, multiple access points, minimal coverage from the property's security cameras. If Vanessa and Lawrence wanted to stage their endgame there, they couldn't have chosen a better location for his purposes. His phone buzzed with a message from an unlisted number. Diaz has recruited 2 more. Ex-military. Armed. So they weren't just planning character assassination or financial ruin. They wanted him dead. Russell felt a cold calm settle over him. He had anticipated this, prepared for it, but the confirmation that they would go to such lengths, potentially exposing Nathaniel to danger in the process, hardened his resolve. He replied, "Proceed with Protocol Chimera. All assets in place by graduation." Russell closed the model and turned to his window, gazing out at the city he had helped shape. In 3 weeks, everything would change. In 3 weeks, Vanessa and Lawrence would learn the true meaning of vengeance. Chapter 4. Blood Ties. Nathaniel couldn't sleep. The lake house felt oppressive despite its spacious rooms and panoramic views. He sat on his bed, turning his phone over in his hands, contemplating calling his father. The conversation they'd had that afternoon had left him unsettled. A knock at his door startled him. His mother entered without waiting for a response, something she'd done since he was a child. Vanessa Paxton looked immaculate even at midnight, her silk robe perfectly draped over her slender frame. "Still up, darling? Worried about the ceremony?" She sat beside him, stroking his hair as she had when he was young. "Just thinking," he replied, pulling away slightly. She noticed the withdrawal. "You saw your father today." It wasn't a question, but Nathaniel answered anyway. "Yes, I delivered the invitation as you asked." "And how was he?" Her tone was light, but her eyes were intent. "The same as always. Concerned about my finals." Nathaniel kept his response vague, unwilling to share the details of their conversation. Vanessa smiled. "He always was good at appearances. Your father could seem concerned while plotting your downfall." She patted his knee. "I've never told you everything about our divorce, Nathaniel. I wanted to protect you." "Mom, it's been 6 years. I don't need—" "He threatened me." She interrupted, her voice hardening. "When I told him I was leaving, he said he would destroy me, take you away, leave me with nothing. The only reason I got anything in the settlement was because I had documentation of his threats." Nathaniel frowned. This contradicted what he'd pieced together over the years. "Dad's never spoken badly about you to me." "Of course not. He's too smart for that." Vanessa stood, moving to the window. "Lawrence and I have been patient, giving him time to move on, but your father has been undermining our business, spreading rumors, trying to ruin what we've built." "What does this have to do with my graduation?" Nathaniel asked, a chill running through him. Vanessa turned, her expression softening. "Nothing, sweetheart. I just want you to understand why things might be tense at your party. Lawrence and your father have some business matters to resolve. That's all." She kissed his forehead before leaving, but her reassurance did nothing to ease Nathaniel's growing unease. He waited until her footsteps faded down the hall before slipping out of his room and moving silently toward Lawrence's study. The house was quiet except for the gentle lapping of lake waters against the shore. The study door was ajar, voices murmuring inside. Nathaniel positioned himself in the shadows, listening. "Can't trust the boy," a man's voice he didn't recognize was saying. "He's too close to his father." "Nathaniel knows nothing," Lawrence's confident baritone replied. "Vanessa has made sure of that. He'll play his part without even realizing it. And if he doesn't, then he becomes collateral damage. Either way, Russell Harmon ends at that party." Nathaniel's blood ran cold. He must have made a sound, because the voices suddenly stopped. He quickly retreated down the hall, slipping into a bathroom just as the study door opened fully. Heart pounding, Nathaniel waited until the footsteps passed before returning to his room. His hand shook as he reached for his phone, but but he stopped himself from calling his father. If his room was being monitored, and now he suspected it might be, any warning would alert his mother and Lawrence. Instead, he texted his university roommate, "Need to crash at your place tomorrow. Don't tell anyone I'm coming." He needed time away from this house to think, to plan. Whatever was happening, he had just over 3 weeks to figure it out. The next morning, Nathaniel told his mother he needed to return to campus to work on final projects. She seemed reluctant to let him go, but didn't stop him. As he drove away, he noticed a black SUV pulling out behind him, maintaining a discreet distance. He was being followed. Rather than heading to campus, Nathaniel drove to a crowded shopping mall, parking in a massive lot and quickly losing himself in the throng of shoppers. He bought a prepaid phone with cash, then found a quiet corner in a coffee shop to make a call. "Westfield Security," a woman's voice answered. "I need to speak with Thomas Westfield," Nathaniel said, his mouth dry. "Tell him it's Nathaniel Harmon." There was a pause, then Thomas came on the line. "Nathaniel, this is unexpected. I need to see my father, but I can't go to his penthouse. I'm being followed. Where are you now?" "Bridgeport Mall, North Entrance." "Stay there. I'll have someone pick you up in 20 minutes. Red cap, holding a Starbucks cup. They'll approach you with the phrase, "Professor Wilson sends his regards." The call ended. Nathaniel sat back, overwhelmed by how quickly Thomas had taken control of the situation. He hadn't seen much of his father's head of security over the years, but the man's efficient response suggested this wasn't an unusual occurrence. Exactly 20 minutes later, a woman in a red baseball cap approached his table. "Professor Wilson sends his regards," she said calmly. Nathaniel followed her to a service corridor and out to a loading dock where a delivery van waited. Inside, to his surprise, was his father. "Dad," he managed, climbing in. Russell's face was grim. "You're not hurt?" "No, I'm fine, but we need to move," the woman interrupted. "The SUV's team is searching the mall." As the van pulled away, Nathaniel turned to his father. "How did you know I was being followed?" "Because I've been having you protected for the past year," Russell replied evenly. "Ever since Lawrence Paxton made contact with a man named Diaz." "Who's Diaz?" "A fixer who specializes in making problems disappear permanently." Russell's eyes were hard. "I believe your mother and Lawrence have hired him to kill me, and they plan to use your graduation party to do it." Nathaniel felt sick. "Last night, I overheard Lawrence talking." Russell nodded, unsurprised. "Tell me everything you heard." As Nathaniel recounted the conversation, his father's expression grew darker. When he finished, Russell was silent for a long moment. "They're more desperate than I thought," he finally said. "And more reckless, involving you this way. What do they want? Why would they do this?" Russell studied his son. "How much do you know about Paxton Development's Oceanside Resort project?" "Just that it's Lawrence's biggest development. Mom said it would make them hundreds of millions. What she didn't tell you is that the project is built on stolen land using fraudulent permits. My firm discovered this while researching a neighboring site. If that information became public, Lawrence would face criminal charges and financial ruin." "And Mom," Russell's expression softened slightly, "your mother is complicit. She used connections from our marriage to help secure the permits." Nathaniel struggled to process this. "What are we going to do?" "First, we get you somewhere safe. Then, we proceed with the plan I've been developing for the past 5 years." "You've been planning for this?" "I've been planning for everything," Russell replied. "Your mother and Lawrence have underestimated me from the beginning. That ends now." The van turned onto a private airstrip where a small jet waited. "This will take you to a secure location," Russell explained. "Simone here will stay with you." "What?" "No, I want to help," Nathaniel protested. "You can help by staying alive and out of their reach," Russell said firmly. "If they can't use you as bait, they'll have to adjust their plans, which gives us an advantage. But the graduation will proceed as scheduled. They'll assume you're still playing your part, and that will be their final mistake." As they approached the plane, Nathaniel grabbed his father's arm. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have seen what was happening sooner." Russell embraced his son for the first time in years. "None of this is your fault, but I promise you, when it's over, they will never threaten you again." Watching the plane take off, Russell's phone buzzed with a message from Thomas. Diaz's men lost the trail. Proceeding to Phase 2. Russell texted back, "Accelerate timeline." They're getting desperate. Chapter 5. The Conspirators. Lawrence Paxton slammed his fist on his desk, rattling the crystal decanter. "What do you mean you lost him? He's a college student, not a trained operative." The man standing before him, Diaz, remained impassive. He knew he was being followed. That suggests preparation. And the way he disappeared suggests help. Vanessa paced the study, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. "Russell, it has to be. He's poisoned Nathaniel against us." Her voice quavered between rage and fear. "We don't know that," Lawrence cautioned, though his tone lacked conviction. "The boy might just be spooked. He could have overheard something. Either way, he's compromised," Diaz stated flatly. "We need to adjust the plan." Lawrence refilled his whiskey glass. "How?" "The entire setup depends on using the boy to lure Russell to the party." "He'll still come," Vanessa said with sudden certainty. "Even if he suspects a trap, he won't be able to resist the opportunity to confront us. That's who he is. He needs to win, to dominate." Diaz nodded slowly. "Then we continue as planned, but with increased security. I'll bring in 2 more men." After Diaz left, Vanessa collapsed onto the leather sofa. "This is falling apart, Lawrence. If Russell has turned Nathaniel against us." "It changes nothing," Lawrence interrupted. "In fact, it might be better this way. If the boy isn't here, there's less chance of collateral damage. Russell comes to the party, our men take care of him, and we're free. The Oceanside project continues, and we never have to look over our shoulders again." Vanessa wasn't convinced. "You don't know Russell like I do. He doesn't walk into traps. He sets them. He's an architect, not a criminal mastermind," Lawrence scoffed. "And he's alone. We have resources, connections." "So does he," Vanessa warned. "Don't underestimate him. When I left, he said something. Not a threat, more like a promise. He said, 'You'll never see it coming, but when it does, you'll know why.'" Lawrence came to sit beside her, taking her hands in his. "Listen to me. Russell has spent years trying to undermine us, and he's failed. Yes, he's discovered some irregularities with the Oceanside permits, but without proof, it's just speculation. After the graduation party, he won't be a problem anymore." Vanessa leaned against him, drawing comfort from his confidence. "I just want this to be over. I want to stop looking over my shoulder, wondering what he's planning." "Soon," Lawrence promised, kissing her forehead. "Very soon." In a hotel across the city, Diaz met with his team, now 5 men with military and private security backgrounds. "The situation has changed," he explained. "The son is out of the picture, possibly working with the father. Makes our job harder," one of the men noted. "The boy was our insurance." "We adapt," Diaz replied coolly. "Harmon will still attend the party. His pride won't allow him to stay away. When he arrives, Coleman and Peters will escort him to the boathouse for a private conversation with Paxton. That's where we take care of him. And if he doesn't come quietly," Diaz's smile was cold, "then we create a distraction. A tragic accident involving the boat dock perhaps, with multiple casualties. Such a shame during a graduation celebration." The men nodded, understanding the implication. Collateral damage was acceptable as long as the primary target was eliminated. "One more thing," Diaz added. "I want patrols around the property perimeter starting now. If Harmon is planning something, I want to know." As his team dispersed, Diaz remained at the table, studying a photograph of Russell Harmon. There was something about the man's eyes that troubled him, a calculating intelligence that suggested he was always several moves ahead. For the first time in his career, Diaz felt a flicker of uncertainty. He dismissed it. No matter how clever Russell Harmon might be, he couldn't anticipate a bullet. Meanwhile, in a secure compound 200 miles away, Nathaniel paced the comfortable but clearly fortified guest house where his father had sent him. Simone, his assigned protector, watched him with professional detachment. "How long do I have to stay here?" he demanded. "Until your father resolves the situation," she replied calmly. "And how will he do that?" Nathaniel pressed. "My mother and Lawrence are planning to kill him, and he's just going to walk into their party?" Simone's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Your father has been preparing for this confrontation for years, Nathaniel. Trust that he knows what he's doing." That's not an answer, he retorted, frustrated. It's the only one I'm authorized to give you. She checked her watch. Thomas will be calling shortly with an update. Perhaps he can ease your concerns. Nathaniel slumped onto a couch. I should be there. I should be helping him. You are helping, Simone said, her tone softening slightly. By being here, safe, you've removed their primary leverage. Your father can now act without concern for your safety. The secure phone on the table rang, and Simone answered, putting it on speaker. We're here, Thomas. Nathaniel. Thomas's voice came through clearly. Your father asked me to update you. The situation is proceeding as expected. Diaz has increased security at the lake house, but our countermeasures are in place. What countermeasures? Nathaniel asked. What is my father planning? There was a pause before Thomas replied. I can't share operational details, but I can tell you this. Your father has spent years documenting your mother and Lawrence's illegal activities. He has proof of bribery, permit fraud, and conspiracy related to the Oceanside resort, enough to send them to prison for decades. Then why not just go to the authorities? Nathaniel asked. Because Lawrence has too many connections in law enforcement, Thomas explained. Previous attempts to expose similar operations were buried. Your father needed a more definitive approach. Nathaniel felt a chill. He's not going to kill them, is he? No, Thomas said firmly. But when this is over, they'll wish he had. The call ended, leaving Nathaniel with more questions than answers. He turned to Simone. My father, what exactly does he do? I mean, I know he's an architect, but all this, he gestured around the secure compound, isn't normal. Simone considered him for a moment. Your father is a man who prepares for every contingency. When your mother betrayed him, he channeled his pain into creating systems, a network of loyal people, resources, and information that would ensure he could protect what mattered to him. She paused. You matter to him, Nathaniel. More than you know. Nathaniel absorbed this, feeling both comforted and disturbed by the extent of his father's shadow operations. And the graduation party will be the culmination of 6 years of patience and planning, Simone replied, and the beginning of a new chapter for both of you. Chapter 6, Ghosts of the Past. 3 days before the graduation party, Russell met with his core team in a secure conference room beneath his architectural firm. Present were Thomas Westfield, head of security, Dr. Eleanor Vance, a behavioral psychologist who had helped him understand Vanessa and Lawrence's patterns, and federal agent Colin Reed, whose unofficial involvement had been crucial. Our inside sources confirmed Diaz has 7 men positioned around the property, Thomas reported, pulling up a holographic display of the lake house. 2 at each access road, 2 patrolling the grounds, and Diaz himself staying close to Lawrence. And the devices? Russell asked. All in place, Thomas confirmed. The surveillance system we installed 6 months ago during the renovation is fully operational. We have eyes and ears in every room. Russell nodded, turning to Dr. Vance. Your assessment? The psychologist studied her notes. Vanessa is becoming increasingly unstable. The loss of control over Nathaniel has triggered her abandonment issues. Lawrence is compensating with aggression and overconfidence. They're both at their most vulnerable psychologically. Good, Russell murmured. And you, Colin? Agent Reed looked uncomfortable. Everything's ready on our end, but I need to reiterate, this is completely unofficial. If anything goes wrong, the Bureau will disavow any knowledge. Nothing will go wrong, Russell assured him. Your team will receive all the evidence simultaneously with the execution of our plan. Lawrence's connections won't be able to bury it fast enough. As the meeting concluded, Thomas remained behind. There's something else, he said once they were alone. We've detected unusual activity on one of our surveillance channels. Someone may be piggybacking on our system. Russell's expression remained calm. Let them. It might be useful for them to see exactly what we want them to see. And Nathaniel? He's getting restless at the safe house. Keep him there until it's over, Russell said firmly. No matter what he says or what happens, he stays protected. Thomas nodded, then hesitated. Russell, I've worked with you for 6 years. I've never questioned your methods or your motives. But this plan, the scale of it, is proportional to their crimes, Russell finished. They didn't just betray me, Thomas. They've ruined lives with their developments, threatened people who stood in their way. And now they're willing to kill me and potentially harm my son. His eyes hardened. They've earned what's coming. Later that evening, Russell stood on his penthouse balcony, watching the city lights flicker like stars. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Still time to walk away. Take your son and disappear. Last warning. He smiled grimly. Diaz was getting nervous, attempting direct contact. It confirmed what he already suspected. They had detected some of his preparations, but didn't understand their purpose. Russell typed a reply. I never walk away. See you at the party. He sent it, then turned to find Thomas in the doorway. They reached out directly, Russell told him. Desperate move, Thomas observed. What now? Now we give them something to think about. Russell pulled up a program on his phone and activated it. Across the city at the Paxton Lake House, every electronic device, phones, computers, security systems, simultaneously displayed the same image for 3 seconds before returning to normal. A simple architectural blueprint of a trapdoor. A psychological shot across the bow. His phone rang almost immediately. Vanessa, her voice tight with controlled fury. What do you want, Russell? Just ensuring you receive my RSVP for the party, he replied calmly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Stay away from my house, she hissed. Stay away from my family. Our son, he corrected mildly, graduates only once. I'll be there to celebrate with him. He doesn't want you there. None of us do. Russell's voice hardened slightly. Yet you insisted on a personal invitation. Make up your mind, Vanessa. There was a pause before she spoke again, her tone suddenly different, vulnerable, almost pleading. Russell, please. Let's not do this. Whatever you're planning, whatever you think you know, we could talk about it. For Nathaniel's sake. It was a masterful performance. 6 years ago, it might have swayed him. Interesting strategy, he commented, switching from threats to emotional appeals. Did Dr. Stevens suggest that approach? He always did favor the carrot and stick method. Her sharp intake of breath confirmed his suspicion. Dr. Stevens had been their marriage counselor years ago, and now apparently was coaching Vanessa again. You're monitoring us, she accused. Just returning the favor, Russell replied. See you Saturday, Vanessa. Give my regards to Lawrence and Diaz. He ended the call, knowing he had accomplished his goal. They would be off balance now, wondering how much he knew, how he knew it, and what he planned to do with the information. Thomas gave him a questioning look. Was that wise? Necessary, Russell corrected. I need them reactive, not proactive. When people are afraid, they make mistakes. The next day, reports from their surveillance confirmed the effect of Russell's psychological warfare. Lawrence and Diaz had spent hours sweeping the house for bugs, finding only the decoys Russell had wanted them to find. Vanessa had argued with Lawrence about canceling the party, but he had refused, insisting they needed to maintain appearances. Meanwhile, Diaz had brought in additional security, increasing his team to 10 men. The lake house was now effectively a fortress, with armed guards at every entrance. They're expecting a frontal assault, Thomas reported, showing Russell the security footage. Diaz has positioned his men to repel an attack team. Russell smiled faintly, while leaving themselves completely vulnerable to what's actually coming. He turned to Thomas. Initiate the final phase. It's time to bring the ghosts home. Thomas nodded, understanding the reference. They'll be in position by tomorrow morning. Are you sure about this part of the plan? Absolutely, Russell affirmed. It's not enough to destroy Lawrence and Vanessa. I want them to understand why they're being destroyed. I want them to face everyone they've ever wronged. The next morning, the day before the graduation party, 5 luxury cars arrived at the main gate of the Paxton estate. The security guards were confronted with impeccably dressed men and women bearing what appeared to be legitimate invitations to a pre-graduation brunch. Confused, the guards called the house, where an equally confused Lawrence demanded to know what was happening. By the time he realized the invitations were forgeries, the visitors had been admitted and were proceeding up the drive. Russell watched through the surveillance system as Lawrence and Vanessa emerged onto the front steps, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock as they recognized their uninvited guests. The former owners of the Oceanside Resort property, whom Lawrence had forced out through fraudulent foreclosures, the environmental inspector who had been bribed to falsify reports, the city councilwoman whose career Lawrence had destroyed when she opposed the development, and the journalist whose exposé on Paxton development had been buried after Lawrence threatened his family. Each ghost from their past now stood before them, silent and accusing. Lawrence recovered first. What is the meaning of this? This is private property. You're trespassing. The former property owner, an elderly man leaning on a cane, stepped forward. We received invitations. Quite official looking. Something about making amends. Get out, Lawrence snarled. All of you. Before I have you removed. That would be unwise, the journalist replied calmly, holding up his phone. This entire encounter is being live-streamed. How would it look for the great Lawrence Paxton to have elderly former homeowners forcibly ejected from his property? As if on cue, a news helicopter appeared overhead. Vanessa, her face pale, touched Lawrence's arm. Invite them in, she murmured. We can't make a scene. Not now. Lawrence's jaw clenched, but he forced a smile. Of course. Please come in. There must have been some misunderstanding about the date. As the ghosts were reluctantly ushered inside, Russell turned to Thomas. Perfect. Now, they'll be completely distracted dealing with this situation while we make our final preparations. And tomorrow? Thomas asked. Russell's expression was resolute. Tomorrow, justice. Chapter 7. The Graduation Party. The day of Nathaniel's graduation party dawned clear and bright, the lake a mirror reflecting the cloudless sky. By noon, the first legitimate guests began to arrive. Nathaniel's professors, classmates, and family friends, all unaware of the tension simmering beneath the celebration surface. Russell arrived precisely at 1 p.m., dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that concealed a lightweight bulletproof vest. He handed his invitation to the security guard at the gate, who checked it against a list before reluctantly waving him through. The lakeside terrace had been transformed with white tents, floral arrangements, and a string quartet playing softly in the background. Servers circulated with champagne and canapes. To any observer, it appeared to be nothing more than a proud family celebrating their son's achievement. Russell scanned the crowd, noting the positions of Diaz's men, obvious to his trained eye despite their attempts to blend in with the guests. He accepted a glass of champagne from a passing server and made his way through the party, exchanging pleasantries with Nathaniel's professors while aware of the eyes tracking his movements. Lawrence spotted him first, his face tightening before he composed himself and approached with a false smile. Russell, so glad you could make it. I wouldn't miss it, Russell replied, matching Lawrence's insincere tone. Although I noticed the guest of honor is absent. Lawrence's smile slipped slightly. Nathaniel's running late. Last-minute preparations at the university. Vanessa's gone to collect him. A lie, of course. Russell knew exactly where Nathaniel was, still safely at the compound, protected by Simone. But he merely nodded. I look forward to seeing him. As Lawrence excused himself to greet other guests, Russell caught a glimpse of the ghosts from the previous day, now legitimately invited and scattered throughout the party. Each one carried a small device disguised as a phone or watch, recording equipment providing additional surveillance. 2 hours into the celebration, the atmosphere remained outwardly festive but increasingly tense. Vanessa had returned without Nathaniel, claiming he had texted that he would arrive on his own. She avoided Russell entirely, keeping to the opposite side of the terrace while maintaining a strained smile for the guests. Russell checked his watch. Nearly time. His phone vibrated once, the signal from Thomas that all elements were in position. He made his way casually toward the boathouse, knowing Diaz's men would report his movement. As expected, within minutes, Lawrence appeared at his side. Admiring the view, Lawrence asked, gesturing toward the lake. Remembering, Russell replied. Nathaniel learned to swim off that dock. Vanessa and I taught him together. Lawrence's jaw tightened. The past is gone, Russell. Perhaps we should discuss the future. Privately, he nodded toward the boathouse. Lead the way, Russell agreed, following Lawrence down the path that wound along the lakeshore. The boathouse was a modern structure of glass and cedar, with a covered slip where Lawrence's speedboat gleamed. Inside, as Russell had anticipated, waited Diaz and two of his men. "Mr. Harmon," Diaz greeted him with cold professionalism. "Thank you for making this easy." Russell smiled slightly. "On the contrary, I'm making it impossible." Confusion flickered across Diaz's face, but before he could respond, his earpiece crackled. He pressed a finger to it, listening, and his expression changed to one of alarm. "Sir," he addressed Lawrence, "we have a situation. Federal agents are at the gate." Lawrence paled. "What? Stall them." "Too late," Russell said calmly. "They're already on the property." Along with a full team from the State Environmental Protection Agency, the district attorney's office, and several journalists who received anonymous tips about environmental violations and conspiracy to commit murder. As if to confirm his words, they could hear commotion from the main house, raised voices, the thud of heavy vehicles arriving. Lawrence turned on Russell, his face contorted with rage. "What have you done?" "I've simply arranged for the appropriate authorities to receive evidence of your crimes," Russell replied. "The illegal land acquisitions for Oceanside Resort, the falsified environmental impact studies, the bribes to planning officials, and, of course, your plot to murder me at my son's graduation party." Diaz drew his weapon, pointing it at Russell's chest. "This changes nothing. You won't leave here alive." "Actually, I will," Russell countered, "because this entire conversation is being broadcast live to the federal agents currently moving through your property. The boathouse has been wired for video and audio for months. Kill me, and you add another murder charge to the multiple felonies you're already facing." As if on cue, a voice boomed through a megaphone outside. "This is the FBI. The building is surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Diaz hesitated, looking to Lawrence for guidance. Lawrence's mind worked frantically. "This is a bluff. He can't prove anything about Oceanside. We covered our tracks." "Did you?" Russell produced a flash drive from his pocket. "Your wife helped me steal your designs 6 years ago. Did you really think I wouldn't return the favor? While you were focused on monitoring me, my team has had access to your systems for years. Every email, every digital conversation, every financial transaction, all documented and verified." Lawrence lunged for the flash drive, but Diaz caught his arm. "Don't. It's over." "Listen to your hired killer, Lawrence," Russell advised. "He understands the concept of cutting losses." The door to the boathouse burst open as federal agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Federal agents. Hands where we can see them. Diaz slowly placed his gun on the floor and raised his hands. Lawrence, his face ashen, did the same. As the agents secured them, Agent Reed approached Russell. "You okay?" Russell nodded. "Right on schedule." "Where's Vanessa?" "Being taken into custody at the main house," Reed confirmed, along with several of Diaz's men who decided not to resist. Russell walked out onto the dock, looking back toward the terrace where guests were being interviewed by authorities. The celebration transformed into a crime scene. A separate team of agents was escorting the ghosts, the whistleblowers and victims who had agreed to testify against Lawrence and Vanessa, to waiting vehicles. His phone rang. "Nathaniel." "Dad? Thomas just told me what happened. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Russell assured him. "It's over." "So they're going to prison?" "With the evidence we've gathered, they'll be facing multiple federal charges. Neither Lawrence's connections nor his money will save them this time." There was a pause before Nathaniel spoke again. "Can I come home now?" Russell felt something in his chest loosen, a tension he had carried for years. "Yes, it's safe now." As he ended the call, Russell noticed Lawrence being led past him toward a waiting FBI vehicle. Their eyes met, and Lawrence's face twisted with hatred. "This isn't over," Lawrence spat. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started." Russell watched him impassively. "On the contrary, I've just finished what you began 6 years ago when you decided to steal what was mine." He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Consider yourself lucky. Prison is merciful compared to what I originally planned for you." The threat hung in the air between them as agents led Lawrence away. Russell remained on the dock, watching the law enforcement activity with a sense of completion rather than triumph. The vengeance he had meticulously crafted for 6 years had been executed perfectly, but the victory felt hollow without his son present. A voice behind him broke into his thoughts. Mr. Harmon. He turned to find one of the agents, a young woman with a serious expression. Yes, there's been a development at the main house. You should come. Chapter 8. Son of the Father. Russell followed the agent back to the lakeside terrace, now transformed into a command center for the multi-agency operation. Guests had been corralled into one area for questioning, while evidence teams combed through the house. Agent Reed met him at the steps. We have a problem, Reed said without preamble. Vanessa's missing. What? Russell's calm facade cracked. How is that possible? You said she was in custody. She was being processed when she requested to use the bathroom. The female agent who accompanied her was found unconscious. Vanessa somehow acquired her weapon and slipped past the perimeter. Russell's mind raced through contingencies. She knows the property better than anyone. There are underground access tunnels from the original estate. He pulled up a schematic on his phone. Here and here. She could have used either to reach the road beyond the security checkpoint. Reed dispatched teams to check the tunnels, but Russell knew it was likely too late. She's not running away, he said with certainty. She's making a countermove. What kind of countermove? Reed asked. The realization hit Russell like a physical blow. Nathaniel. He pulled out his phone, dialing Simone. No answer. He tried Thomas next, who picked up immediately. She's gone dark, Thomas reported before Russell could ask. Simone missed her check-in. I've dispatched a team to the safe house. ETA, 10 minutes. Too long, Russell snapped. Vanessa knows where he is. She must have been tracking my movements more effectively than we realized. How could she know about the safe house? Reed demanded. Because I underestimated her, Russell admitted, the rare acknowledgement of failure bitter on his tongue. I was so focused on Lawrence and his operation that I didn't give enough weight to Vanessa's own resources. His phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number, like father, like son. Let's see how well you taught him to swim. Attached was a photo of Nathaniel, unconscious in what appeared to be the back of a vehicle. Simone was visible in the background, bleeding from a head wound. Russell showed the image to Reed and Thomas. She's taking him to water. Not here, too obvious. Where else? The reservoir, Thomas suggested. Your old property on the west side. The hunting cabin, Russell agreed. It's remote, accessible by boat, and has emotional significance. That would appeal to her. Reed was already organizing a tactical team, but Russell shook his head. No time. She has at least a 30-minute head start. By the time her team gets there, it will be too late. So what's your plan? Reed demanded. Russell met his gaze steadily. I'm going alone. She wants me, not Nathaniel. This was always between us. That's not how federal operations work, Reed objected. This stopped being just a federal operation the moment she took my son, Russell countered. I'm going. You can follow with your team, but I'm not waiting. Before Reed could argue further, Russell was already moving, Thomas falling in beside him as they headed for the helicopter Russell had stationed nearby as an emergency extraction plan. I'm coming with you, Thomas said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. Russell nodded once, knowing better than to waste time arguing. As they lifted off, Thomas handed him a tactical vest and a sidearm. Just in case diplomacy fails, he said grimly. The flight to the reservoir took 18 agonizing minutes. From the air, they spotted Vanessa's vehicle parked at the old boat launch near the hunting cabin that had once been part of Russell's family property, a weekend retreat he had maintained after his parents' death, and where he had taken Nathaniel fishing as a child. There, Russell pointed to a small boat moving across the water toward the cabin's private dock. That's her. The pilot set them down in a clearing a quarter-mile from the cabin. Russell and Thomas disembarked, moving swiftly through the forest with the familiarity of men who had prepared for this scenario. I'll circle around to the back, Thomas whispered as they approached. Give you 10 minutes to make contact before I move in. Russell nodded, watching Thomas disappear into the trees before advancing toward the cabin alone. He kept to cover until he reached the edge of the clearing, then deliberately stepped into the open, hands visible. Vanessa, he called out. I'm here, alone. The cabin door opened slowly, and Vanessa emerged, holding a pistol, the agent's weapon. She looked wild-eyed, her perfect appearance disheveled, her designer outfit stained with dirt and sweat. "Drop your weapon and kick it away," she commanded, her voice surprisingly steady. Russell complied, removing his gun and sending it spinning across the ground. "Where's Nathaniel?" "Safe," she replied. "For now. Inside, tied up but unharmed. Unlike your attack dog." Her smile was razor-sharp. "Simone, was it?" "She put up quite a fight." "Let Nathaniel go," Russell said evenly. "This is between you and me. It always has been." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "So noble now. Where was that nobility when you were systematically destroying everything Lawrence and I built? When you were turning our son against us?" "You did that yourself," Russell replied. "I never lied to Nathaniel about you. I never needed to. Your actions spoke for themselves." She gestured with the gun. Inside, slowly, Russell mounted the steps to the cabin porch, maintaining eye contact with Vanessa. As he passed her, she pressed the gun to his back, pushing him through the door. Inside, Nathaniel was indeed tied to a chair, a gag in his mouth. His eyes widened when he saw his father. Beside him, Simone lay unconscious on the floor, blood matting her hair. Russell moved toward his son, but Vanessa jabbed the gun harder into his back. "Don't touch the ropes, and I shoot you where you stand." "What's your plan here, Vanessa?" Russell asked, turning to face her. "Lawrence is in custody. Your assets are being frozen as we speak. There's no version of this where you emerge victorious. There's a version where you suffer," she countered, her eyes feverish. "Where you lose everything, just like I have." Understanding dawned. "You're planning to kill Nathaniel. Make me watch, then kill me." Vanessa's smile was chilling. "Always the quick study. But first, I want you to understand exactly what you've done. The lives you've ruined with your obsessive need for vengeance." "My need?" Russell echoed incredulously. "You betrayed me. You stole from me. You and Lawrence conspired to have me killed. Because you gave us no choice," she shouted, her composure cracking. "You were suffocating me, controlling everything. Then when I found happiness with Lawrence, you couldn't let go. You had to destroy us." Russell studied her, seeing the delusion in her eyes. "You rewrote history to justify your actions. I never controlled you, Vanessa. I trusted you. That was my mistake." Her hand trembled on the gun. "Enough talking. On your knees." Russell complied slowly, calculating angles, distances, options. Thomas would be in position by now, but any sudden move risked Nathaniel's safety. "I want you to apologize," Vanessa demanded. "To Nathaniel. For using him in your vendetta. For not being there when he needed a father." Russell met his son's eyes. "I have nothing to apologize for. Everything I've done has been to protect him. From you, from Lawrence, from the consequences of your choices." Vanessa's face contorted with rage. "Wrong answer." She swung the gun toward Nathaniel. Russell lunged forward, closing the distance before she could fire. He caught her wrist, forcing the gun upward as it discharged, the bullet shattering the cabin's front window. They struggled for control, Vanessa fighting with unexpected strength fueled by desperation. She kneed him in the stomach, momentarily breaking his grip. The gun came level with his chest. "Goodbye, Russell," she snarled. A single shot rang out. Vanessa's eyes widened in shock. She looked down at the spreading crimson stain on her chest, then back up at Russell in confusion. Behind her stood Nathaniel, his bonds cut, Simone's backup weapon in his trembling hands. Somehow, during the struggle, he had managed to free himself and retrieve the gun hidden in Simone's ankle holster. "Nathaniel," Vanessa whispered, her voice suddenly small. She took a stumbling step toward him. "My baby." Nathaniel's face was stone. "You were going to kill my father." Vanessa collapsed to her knees, the gun falling from her limp fingers. "I just wanted to protect us from him. He was never the threat," Nathaniel said quietly. "You were." Russell kicked Vanessa's weapon away, then moved swiftly to his son's side. "Are you hurt?" Nathaniel shook his head, still staring at his mother as she slumped to the floor. "I killed her," he said numbly. "You saved my life," Russell corrected, wrapping an arm around his son's shoulders and gently taking the gun from his hands. "And she's not dead yet." As if on cue, Thomas burst through the back door, weapon raised. Taking in the scene with a professional glance, he immediately went to Simone, checking her pulse. "She'll live," he reported before moving to Vanessa. "GSW to the chest," he assessed. "She needs immediate medical attention." Russell nodded. "Call it in. Then check the perimeter. Make sure she didn't bring anyone else." As Thomas moved to comply, Russell guided Nathaniel to a chair, keeping his body between his son and the sight of his bleeding mother. "It's over," he said softly. "You're safe now." Nathaniel looked up at him, his eyes hollow. "At my graduation party, when I hugged you, I was trying to warn you. I knew something was planned. I never thought it would end like this." "I know," Russell said, "and none of this is your fault. Remember that." The sound of approaching helicopters filtered through the broken window, Reed and his team arriving at last. Russell held his son's gaze. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Nathaniel nodded slowly, some of the shock receding from his expression. "Like father, like son," he murmured, unknowingly echoing Vanessa's taunt. Russell glanced at his ex-wife's unconscious form, then back at his son. In that moment, he saw himself in Nathaniel's eyes, the same capacity for calculated action, for doing whatever was necessary to protect what mattered. It was both a comfort and a concern. "Yes," he agreed quietly, "but you're also your own man. Don't let this define you." Federal agents swarmed the cabin, securing the scene. Paramedics rushed to treat Simone and Vanessa. Through it all, Russell remained at his son's side, a silent bulwark against the chaos. Agent Reed approached them, his expression grave. "We need statements from both of you." Later, Russell said firmly, "My son needs medical attention and rest." Reed looked like he might argue, then nodded reluctantly. "Tomorrow, then? First thing." He hesitated. For what it's worth, this appears to be a clear case of self-defense. Ms. Paxton abducted 2 people at gunpoint and attempted murder. As they exited the cabin, Russell kept his arm around Nathaniel's shoulders. The sun was setting over the reservoir, painting the water in shades of crimson and gold. It seemed fitting that one chapter of their lives should end as the day did, with both beauty and blood on the horizon. "What happens now?" Nathaniel asked as they walked toward the waiting helicopter. Russell considered the question, thinking of the empire he had built, the vengeance he had orchestrated, and the cost of both. "Now we rebuild," he said finally. "Together." Chapter 9, Blood and Water. 3 months after the events at the hunting cabin, Russell Harmon stood at the window of his penthouse, watching a summer thunderstorm roll across the city. Behind him, Nathaniel lounged on the couch, textbooks spread around him as he prepared for his PhD program in environmental engineering. Professor Wilson called again, Nathaniel mentioned casually. "He's still hoping I'll reconsider joining his research team." Russell turned, studying his son. The past months had changed Nathaniel, hardening him in some ways while clarifying his purpose in others. The trauma of shooting his own mother had left its mark, but he had refused counseling, choosing instead to process the experience in his own way, much as Russell would have done. "And will you?" Russell asked. Nathaniel shrugged. "Maybe. His project on sustainable urban development aligns with what I want to do. But I'd be working with Mary Tech Construction, and given their history." "You're concerned about the ethics," Russell concluded. "I'm concerned about associating with a company that might be cutting corners," Nathaniel corrected. "I won't build my career on compromised foundations." Russell nodded, recognizing his own principles reflected in his son's words. Since the confrontation at the cabin, Nathaniel had moved into the penthouse, their relationship evolving into something closer to partnership than traditional father-son dynamics. It was both gratifying and occasionally concerning to Russell how quickly Nathaniel had adapted to his worldview. "Any word from Agent Reed?" Nathaniel asked, changing the subject. "The sentencing is next week," Russell replied. "Lawrence is looking at 15 to 20 years for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. Without Vanessa's testimony against him, the prosecution's case isn't as strong as it could be, but the evidence we gathered is substantial." Nathaniel's expression darkened at the mention of his mother. Vanessa had survived the gunshot wound, but had suffered a stroke during surgery that left her partially paralyzed and with significant cognitive impairment. She was currently in a high-security medical facility, deemed unfit to stand trial. "Have you visited her?" Russell asked, already knowing the answer. "No." Nathaniel's tone made it clear the subject was closed. Russell didn't push. He understood better than most the need to compartmentalize painful relationships. Instead, he moved to his desk and retrieved a folder. "I have something for you to consider." Nathaniel took the folder, opening it to find architectural plans for a large-scale development. "What is this?" "The oceanside resort property," Russell explained. "With Lawrence's assets frozen and the company in receivership, the land is being sold at auction next month. I'm considering acquiring it." Nathaniel studied the plans with growing interest. "This isn't a resort. It's a marine research center with sustainable housing. It's a concept I've been developing," Russell acknowledged. "The location is perfect. Access to protected waters, existing infrastructure that can be repurposed. With the right team, we could create something that benefits the environment instead of exploiting it. And profits from it," Nathaniel noted shrewdly. Russell smiled. "Ethical business can still be profitable. I'm proposing we develop this together. Your environmental expertise, my architectural vision." Nathaniel set the plans aside, his expression thoughtful. "Using Lawrence's failure as our foundation." "Poetic justice," Russell agreed. "Taking something they tried to build through corruption and turning it into something meaningful." "You never intended to simply destroy them, did you?" Nathaniel asked suddenly. "You wanted to replace them, to build something better in the space they left behind." Russell considered the observation. "Destruction without creation is wasteful. I wanted justice, but also transformation." He paused. "Does that interest you?" Instead of answering directly, Nathaniel rose and moved to stand beside his father at the window. "The night of my graduation party, when I hugged you and said, 'Whatever happens tonight isn't my fault,' I was terrified. Mom had told me you were dangerous, that you might hurt people. And now," Russell prompted, "now I understand that she was right, but not in the way she meant." Nathaniel met his father's gaze. "You are dangerous to people who betray you, who threaten what's yours. But that danger is controlled, calculated." He looked back at the plans. "Yes, I'm interested. Not just in the project, but in learning how you think, how you operate." Russell felt a complex mix of pride and concern. "It's not an easy path, Nathaniel. The kind of justice I pursue comes with costs." "I've already paid the heaviest price," Nathaniel replied, his voice hardening. "I shot my own mother to save you. I made my choice." The statement hung between them, a declaration of allegiance that Russell hadn't sought but couldn't reject. His son had chosen him, chosen his worldview, his standards, his unforgiving nature. "Then we'll proceed," Russell said finally. "But remember what I told you at the cabin. Don't let one moment define you." Nathaniel's smile held a new edge that mirrored Russell's own. "It didn't define me. It revealed me." The intercom buzzed, interrupting the moment. "Mr. Harmon, Thomas Westfield, and Ms. Vance are here for your meeting." "Send them up," Russell instructed, turning back to Nathaniel. "We should discuss the details of the acquisition strategy." As his core team arrived and the planning session began, Russell observed his son integrating seamlessly into the discussion, offering insights that balanced innovation with pragmatism. Nathaniel had always had potential, but adversity had honed him, giving him a clarity of purpose that might have taken years to develop otherwise. Later that evening, after the meeting concluded, Russell received a call from Agent Reed. "Lawrence is requesting a meeting." Reed informed him without preamble. "Says he has information you might find valuable. Something about Vanessa's private accounts." "Desperate measures from a desperate man," Russell assessed. "Is it worth pursuing?" "Might be," Reed admitted. "Our financial team has hit roadblocks with some offshore accounts registered to shell companies. If Lawrence can provide access codes." "I'll consider it," Russell promised, ending the call. Nathaniel, who had been monitoring the conversation, raised an eyebrow. "You're not actually going to meet with him?" "Knowledge is leverage," Russell replied. "Whatever Lawrence is offering, it costs us nothing to listen." "Except time," Nathaniel countered, "and giving him the satisfaction of seeing you." Russell studied his son, noting the hardening of his attitudes. Sometimes the appearance of cooperation yields greater benefits than outright refusal. Nathaniel considered this, then nodded slowly. A tactical concession. Precisely. Russell returned to the development plans. Now about the research facility placement. 3 days later, Russell sat across from Lawrence Paxton in a high-security visiting room. The once powerful developer had aged years in just months, his expensive suits replaced by prison orange, his confident bearing diminished. "You look well, Russell." Lawrence opened with forced casualness. "How's Nathaniel?" "We're not here to discuss my son," Russell replied coolly. "You indicated you had information regarding Vanessa's accounts." Lawrence leaned forward, direct as always. "Yes, I know where Vanessa hid her personal fortune, separate from our shared assets. Over $30 million in untraceable funds that the feds haven't found. And you're willing to reveal this why?" Russell asked, though he already knew the answer. "Consideration at sentencing," Lawrence said, "and a percentage of the recovery. 10% seems fair." Russell allowed himself a small smile. "You're assuming I care about the money, don't you?" Lawrence challenged. "That's what this has all been about. Compensation for what you believe we took from you." "That's where you've always misunderstood me," Russell replied. "This was never about money. It was about justice, about consequences for betrayal." Lawrence's expression hardened. "Then why are you here?" "To make sure you understand something," Russell said, leaning in slightly. "I know about the contingency plans you set in motion before your arrest, the people you've contacted from inside, the threats you've made to try to maintain control of what remains of your empire." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "They won't save you." Lawrence paled slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The 2 former security contractors you hired to target Thomas Westfield?" Russell continued calmly. "They've been arrested. The attorney who was transferring funds to maintain your loyalty payments? Disbarred as of yesterday. The witness you were pressuring to recant? Now under federal protection." "Ow!" Lawrence began, then caught himself. "I told you 6 years ago that you would never see it coming," Russell reminded him. "That hasn't changed. For every move you make, I've already made 3 to counter it." Lawrence's facade cracked, revealing the desperation beneath. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Russell replied simply. "You have nothing I need or want. I came here to make sure you understand that your remaining options have been systematically eliminated. Whatever schemes you're still nurturing, whatever hopes you're clinging to, let them go." He stood to leave, but Lawrence called after him. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You've turned your son into a copy of yourself, cold, calculating, unforgiving. That's my victory. Vanessa and I may have lost everything, but so have you. The boy you loved is gone." Russell paused, considering whether to respond. "Nathaniel made his choices just as you made yours. The difference is he chose justice. You chose corruption. Justice." Lawrence laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call shooting his own mother? Training him to be your successor in vengeance? Tell yourself whatever helps you sleep at night, Russell, but we both know what you've done to him." For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed Russell's mind. Had he demanded too high a price from his son? Had his pursuit of justice twisted Nathaniel's natural development? He pushed the thought aside. "Goodbye, Lawrence. This is the last time we'll speak." As Russell exited the prison, he found Nathaniel waiting in the car, contrary to their agreement that he would remain at the penthouse. "I needed to see him," Nathaniel explained before Russell could question his presence, "to see if he still had any power over us." "And your conclusion?" Russell asked, sliding into the seat beside him. "He doesn't," Nathaniel said with quiet certainty. "He's finished." They drove in silence for several minutes before Nathaniel spoke again. "He tried to manipulate you, didn't he? Use me as leverage somehow." Russell glanced at his son, impressed by his perception. "He suggested I had corrupted you, turned you into something you weren't meant to be." Nathaniel considered this. "And that bothers you?" "It raises questions," Russell admitted, "about the price of the path we've chosen." "The path I've chosen," Nathaniel corrected firmly. "Mom and Lawrence tried to use me as a weapon against you. That was their choice. Defending you, that was mine." He turned to face his father directly. "I don't regret it, and I don't want your protection from the consequences." Russell studied his son, seeing both himself and something entirely new in Nathaniel's resolute expression. Then we continue as planned. The Oceanside acquisition moves forward next week. Good, Nathaniel nodded. I've been working on refinements to the environmental impact assessments. With the right approach, we can turn that coastline into a model of sustainable development. As they discussed the project details, Russell reflected on Lawrence's parting shot. Perhaps there was truth in it. Nathaniel had indeed changed, hardened in ways that echoed Russell's own transformation after Vanessa's betrayal. But where Russell's change had been driven by vengeance, Nathaniel seemed fueled by a desire to build something meaningful from the wreckage of his family's destruction. That night, as a new storm rolled across the city, Russell found Nathaniel on the penthouse balcony, watching the lightning with the same intensity Russell often did. I used to be afraid of storms, Nathaniel commented as his father joined him. Mom would tell me to hide under the covers until they passed. And now I understand their purpose, Nathaniel replied. They clear away what's weak to make room for new growth. He turned to Russell. Like what we did. Russell placed a hand on his son's shoulder, feeling the solid strength there. What we're doing, he corrected. This is just the beginning. Together they watched the lightning split the sky, illuminating the city they would reshape according to their vision. A vision forged in betrayal, tempered by justice, and now focused on creation rather than destruction. The storm raged around them, but they stood unmoved, two men who had discovered their true natures in the crucible of conflict and emerged stronger for it. Like father, like son, not in their capacity for vengeance, but in their refusal to forgive those who betrayed them, and their determination to build something enduring from the ashes of that betrayal. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.